Hello, everyone. My name is Brianne VanDyke, and I'll be talking about my experiences in the Development Summer Internship Program, both as a student in our class and as an intern for Michigan Medicine Development Events. Looking ahead, I'll talk about summer 2020 and the context of my DSIP experiences, as well as what happened in the classroom and at the workplace, and the lessons that I'm taking away from it all. So, as we all know, summer 2020 has been a time of unexpected and unpredictable circumstances, which have distinctly shaped my DSIP experience. The two biggest forces have been the outbreak and spread of COVID-19 and the necessary explosion of the global conversation surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. So, COVID-19 changed the nature of my internship, both at my host site of Michigan Med Development Events and in my DSIP course with the other interns. With that said, I'm grateful to have had amazing supervisors and teams, both in Michigan Med and DSIP, who made the transition to virtual work possible and enjoyable. As it relates to the BLM movement, DSIP served as a space for us to grow and learn from one another through sharing resources, by having honest conversations and asking tough questions, and looking at how the movement intersects with our course content. These circumstances, although challenging in their own ways to grapple with, have encouraged me to adapt and grow beyond my own expectations for the summer. Together in a virtual classroom, our DSIP bunch learned about development and advancement in higher education. So working through 4 modules of learning, we covered everything from values-based fundraising and leadership, the fundraising fundamentals, the ethics of diversity in fundraising, and pursuing fundraising as a career. Throughout these modules, we gained a wealth of industry knowledge by engaging with a variety of guest speakers and authors who are experts in their field, by working through a number of challenging and useful exercises, and by reflecting on how each lesson and exercise could be applied to our own lives as individuals, as professionals, and as leaders. Apart from the time spent in class with my cohort, I was a fundraising and development events intern with the Michigan Medicine Development Events team. As a member of the events team, I was given 3 objectives for the summer. The first was to benchmark the University of Michigan Medical School alumni reunion against those of our peer institutions in order to make recommendations that would improve our reunion operations. The second objective was to complete the same benchmarking and recommendation process, but for Michigan Medicine's signature fundraising events. And finally, the third objective was to research new ways to engage and steward donors through events. And like I mentioned earlier, all 3 of these objectives were heavily influenced by COVID-19 and the hiatus of in-person events, which caused me to pay special attention to how the events team could virtually engage with their constituents in each of these different facets. So the research process for completing these objectives happened in 3 phases. The first was to create the plan. I divided the research into 2 categories, the first being the medical school reunion and the second being signature fundraising events. I then created corresponding sets of qualitative questions and quantitative surveys that would provide me with useful data on these 2 categories. The second phase was to conduct the research. So I contacted representatives at a variety of institutions that were similar to Michigan Medicine, meaning they were higher education institutions with both a medical school and a health system. I then collected data by conducting informational interviews via Zoom and distributing the surveys. Once that was complete, I began to analyze the data. So after data analysis, the final phase was to conclude the research and make recommendations. So I presented the events team with a PowerPoint detailing implementable recommendations for improving the Medical School reunion, as well as Michigan Medicine signature fundraising events. I also provided recommendations for building our repertoire of digital donor engagement strategies for events. Finally, I'd like to conclude with an overview of the skills that I've learned and the insight that I've gained from this experience that will serve me well in life beyond DSIP. In terms of insight gained, I've learned that digging deep and getting to know who I am and what I value is one of the most important steps in leading a life full of purpose. And I've also learned that integrating reflective practices that encompass all areas of my life is going to help me become the best version of myself. On a more technical note, I've learned how to be flexible and adapt to many layers of change happening simultaneously, whether they're changes in my work environment, my tasks, my personal life, etc. I've also learned how to conduct long-term research in order to consult an organization, and I've learned how to work and learn in a virtual environment. I want to end by saying thank you to everyone that's made my DSIP experience so wonderful. Thank you to Kat, Jamika, Sarah, and the entire DSIP family. Thank you to Jesse, who's been the best supervisor, and the rest of the Michigan Medicine Development Events team. And last but not least, thank you to the amazing 2020 cohort of interns.